Hello and welcome to Futurised Swiss Re in Conversation with InsurTech Startups. I'm your host, Pavithra. I lead the Center of Excellence for Quality for Enterprise IT at Swiss Re while being a full-time mother. Having spent many years in the industry, I've seen the rise and fall of technologies, but today we are standing at a new horizon. Today, we are here to discuss the rise of InsurTech startups and their competition with the established insurers. In this episode of Futurize, we will take a peek into evolving disruptive innovations and its influence on the insurance industry. We are in conversation with Riskcovry and Swiss Re, who will share their insights on the subject. We'll start with a short introduction. Kuldeep?
Yeah, good morning, all. I'm delighted to introduce myself as Kuldeep Singh, the India head for corporate solution at Swiss Re. With over 18 years, I have been into insurance and banking industry, and I've had the privilege of leading underwriting, actuarial, business transformation, data analytics, and operations team. I think it has been an incredible journey, especially in this dynamic nature, which is ever evolving. So here I am to just provide my knowledge and insight on the InsurTech today.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Chiranth?
Hi everyone. Pavithra and Christy and the T-Hub teams, thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk to you all today. Hi Kuldeep and the others as well. I'm Chiranth. I'm one of the co-founders of Riskcovry. For those of us who haven't heard about Riskcovry yet, Riskcovry is an insurtech infrastructure platform. We are a 5-year-old insurtech startup based out of India. And essentially, we sit between insurance distributors on one end and insurance companies on the other end and provide all the infrastructure that is required for any insurance distribution use case. Customers are usually banks, brokers, fintechs, home finance companies, NBFCs, MFIs, and consumer internet platforms who look at us as a one-stop shop for any insurance distribution use case. So the analogy is it's like a payment gateway, but for insurance distribution. So like a brand would, like a large consumer internet company or a bank or a broker, when they want to start accepting digital payments from their customer, they don't necessarily go and build their own payment gateway. They partner with a Stripe or a Razorpay. Similar to that, we are an insurance in a box to help them to distribute insurance. On the supply end or the insurer end, we work with about 44 out of the 58 plus insurers in India to whom we have written pipes. We have about more than 100 insurance products out of the box offered via an API, and are growing fastest in our space of insurtech infrastructure at this moment. We have gone through 3 rounds of funding, great to be on this journey. All a bunch of ups and downs in this in the startup world. We have seen our last 5 years going through from 0 API calls per day to about 4 lakh API calls per day that we do that we do currently. So a lot has changed. So that's about sort of Riskcovry. At Riskcovry, my role is I run everything horizontal to the company. So things like product, corp dev, marketing, talent, and data sciences.
Chiranth, you're like all in one, one-man army. Right. And it is amazing to understand the growth of Riskcovry and how well you guys have done in the industry. Talking about the evolution itself, Kuldeep, how do you see, or what is your perspective about evolution and the boom of insurtechs in today's age?
I think the boom of InsurTech, I think industry has been quite transformative. And if I see the future, it will be the same. And I think it will become multifold in times to come. Because if you look at the established insurance and the other insurance company, they have this specific need because they want to innovate, improve their insurance operation efficiency, want to come close to the customer, and they want to assess their current and the emerging and prospective risk for them. And these were the needs which have been quite fairly addressed by the InsurTech and startup industry, especially through the collaboration and partnership, because the traditional insurance companies are getting now benefited from technology capabilities, which InsurTech and startup are bringing onto the table. And at the same time, InsurTech and startup companies are getting benefit from established insurance through leveraging their resources and getting their industry expertise. So there cannot be a better blend than this, I can say. And I think there have been Some of the success stories I can definitely tell you, which are on top of my list. There are many, though. One is actually definitely the most customer-centric approach. Insurance is a customer-based business, and I think the needs are growing. There is still a lot of protection gap across the different worlds, even in the developed countries, to say so. And I think that's where the InsurTech has put a strong focus on the customer experience and the convenience, to both, and through digital platforms and apps. I think insurtech companies are providing more user-friendly interfaces, personalized policies, and faster claim settlement. I think that's one of the net promoter number you get it when there is a faster claim process. That's daily the voice of customer. It's not always giving the insurance, but managing the claims process. But this customer-centric approach has actually attracted the tech-savvy customers for the InsurTech, and also has challenged the established insurer to look at their operation, look at the way of they operate, and challenge and change it. That's actually on the one side. The other side is definitely the technological advancement, especially big data, artificial intelligence, I see machine learning, and blockchain. They are streamlining insurance operations, enhancing the risk assessment, and to an extent automating the underwriting on one hand. I think these are the two areas that I see predominantly. The other area is a new business segment because they have offered peer-to-peer insurance platform. Micro insurances are now there. On-demand coverages options, you can see the usage-based insurance policies. So these innovations are actually breeding the new emergence of insurance and the needs to cater to, and more to follow. Yeah, so I see the positive, definitely ray of light in this collaboration.
Absolutely wonderfully put, especially the influence of risk coverage, the new underwriting challenges, and technology itself, how it influences the traditional insurance providers. Now, Chiranth, I mean, you come from the other side of the coin, where you have started or set up the Riskcovry platform for the industry. What is your opinion on how this whole evolution took place, and what led you to create this platform for the industry?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We have a slightly different view. I think all of us in the founding team of Riskcovry believe that tech is a major enabler of insurance, right? As it is in the entire financial service space, it's not the differentiator by itself, right? There is at the end of the day, you are providing technology to help support sort of various parts of the equation, right? If we see the entire value chain in three fundamental layers. There is the underwriting layer, which is the reinsurer and the insurer. Then sort of, and on the other end is the experience layer, which is the distributor and the end consumer or the policyholder. And sandwiched between the two is the infrastructure layer. So that's what sort of our thesis is about, which enables any distributor to kind of mask all the complexities of dealing with the supply side. We are that one-stop shop. So that's sort of how our sort of thesis kind of started in terms of our journey. But to take a step back in terms of how we see the evolution of the journey, we think we are in insurance 4.0, right? So if you think about the first insurance policy was written close to I think 4 or 5 centuries ago, right? It was a mercantile sort of a use case covering sort of loss of goods or damage of goods in terms of transit during the shipping industry and all of that back in the day, right? So that's when sort of risk started to be born in terms of someone who was coming in and guaranteeing that risk in terms of any financial overhead should an adverse event happen, right? So that was the birth of insurance, if you will. And if I'm not wrong, it was the British East India Trading Company and all of that was sort of pioneers in that space. Then came and this is specifically talking from the India market, right? Can't speak very intelligently about anything non-India at this point in time. And the 2.0 was more when liberalization happened post 1990s and all of that, where a bunch of insurance companies that were set up abroad with came into India with a JV partnership kind of an approach, a number of homegrown domestic insurers kind of also kind of germinated during that time. And that's when sort of, the industry started going, right? It was, by definition, you need nurturing to this kind of space because it's a push product at the end of the day. That's what we think is in the 2.0. 3.0 is when user behavior started changing, right? So think of sort of, the early part of, this century or sort of going into sort of the last few years as well during the COVID time and all of that, where the user behavior to insurance and risk protection changed, right? Especially COVID is, we think, was a significant, I would say, tailwind or an accelerant to insurance industry. So potentially what happened to, digital payments on the back of demonetization happened to insurance on the back of COVID, where the user behavior was, the user was forced to change the behavior. Right, and think about risk. And when we think that when insurance and risk protection and management happens with your own personal use case along with your families, these are sort of some changes that are here to stay. So what started happening in health and sort of percolating into life and all of that, because otherwise life was mostly seen as a wealth management instrument, right? It was not exactly seen as an insurance instrument, etc., etc. So those kind of things have started changing. Now we think we are in 4.0 thanks to sort of the rise of AI. Right, so AI is sort of, there's data everywhere, there is sort of technology everywhere, and sort of on the back of some very sophisticated AI tools, we are seeing sort of a fundamental shift that can happen across every part of that value chain that we kind of saw earlier to make every part of the value chain faster, better, cheaper, right? So, and this is what we think will probably continue in the forthcoming years, the rise of AI across every part of the value chain, helping with everything from efficient underwriting to efficient distribution, faster, cheaper, better, as you mentioned earlier, and more contextual products, getting sort of very contextual micro for a particular sort of a use case or a duration or a risk coverage, etc., etc. So. And we think that on the back of this, insurance will rightly take its place as a very, very important financial service, but it needs to be invisible, right? I mean, nobody really gets excited about buying insurance. Nobody sort of, wakes up in the, and says that, hey, I'm going to buy insurance today, right? So it is a very delayed gratification product. And in fact, I don't think there is any product, definitely not in financial services. I can't think of things outside of it, but in financial services, also, I mean, insurance is probably the only product that even after buying it, you don't want to use it, right? Which means that if you want to use it, that means some adverse event has happened, and you don't want to kind of have that adverse event happen in the first place, right? So it's an extremely low gratification product, delayed gratification product, no gratification product also, if one would argue. So hence it is a push product, right? If it is not for regulations that are mandating purchase of, protection against sort of, in the auto space or motor, unlikely people will sort of, buy other things unless they want to, right? Which is definitely not the case in Western market. In Western markets, insurance is a way of life, right? We lived in the US, wife and I, for close to a decade, and there sort of, it's a way of life. Here it is not. So those things you start sort of seeing here, and sort of with AI getting hyper accelerated. There is a great 2047 kind of a vision from a regulator here in the government to kind of make insurance available for all. So that is the kind of vision that we also believe in. At Riskcovry, our tagline is enable insurance anywhere, right? The reason it is not everywhere is because it goes against, the principles of insurance. For example, a hospital selling health insurance, right, within the hospital premises, it goes against the principles of insurance, that because you'll mostly be selling to people who are sick. The idea is not to sell to people who are sick. The idea is to provide health cover to people who are healthy, but they might sort of get sick or get into certain sort of adverse events, which where the financial protection or the overhead gets covered by a risk management instrument like insurance, right? So that is, I mean, long, I guess, winded answer to your, fairly targeted question, but that's how we think overall in terms of the evolution of the industry, where insurance started, how it has come, where it is going to go potentially, and what is our, place in that evolution, and how we think about that. Hopefully that helps.
I mean, it is really intriguing to understand your perspectives about how technology, you call technology an enabler, right? And yes, in today's world, very recently I was hearing a radio advertisement saying that you should stop going to colleges because data and information is available at hand. And with the new tools like ChatGPT, you don't need a college degree to prove your might. Moving to the next question.
Yeah.
Um, Kuldeep, how do established insurers respond to the emergence of this insurtech companies, right? And we spoke about the pursuit of the traditional insurers or established insurers trying to be a lot more agile, a lot more innovative. What is the impact of the on the business models, especially when the new insurtech startups emerge in the current market?
I think a very good question, I would say, Pavithra. And I think I'll take few cues from Chiranth's conversation. I think the two important aspects Chiranth really nail it down is the consumer behavior is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And the second is our vision. As a country has a vision, every country has their vision, which is for India, it's actually the Amrit Kal by our Prime Minister. They are looking to have the policy, everyone should have the policy, they should own it. And the vision is also monetary vision, wherein we expect to grow the industry by 45,000 crore, which is a huge by 2045. But under this Amrit Kal, a lot of the external reinsurer, the insurtech companies, they are bringing up the new products because that into the protection gap is really, really huge. And I think, and that's where the established insurer are becoming quite keen to penetrate into this space. And I think there have been few of the highlights I can tell you with the way the generation is going, with the way technology advancing. To give you a few example is the Internet of Things and telematics. I think those would be the game changer in times to come. They're changing the game right away, because now insurtech company, even the insurers, are getting the data from the connected devices like wearable home, smart devices, and they are actually using this data to offer usage-based policy. Uh, and then personalizing those in risk management. That's really a different thing. And if I talk about the blockchain is still being explored, but it's going to be very, very key in times to come, and even now, to do your data protection, fraud prevention, and to exchange information seamlessly. So that's quite reactive. Whenever such products are coming, it's the need in the market, in the segment, in the region, and the insurers are being quite aggressive. And I think the witnessing fact, you can see their investment in this space. So every insurers, they are trying to change their system, their technology, their regulatory framework. I will talk about more regulatory in the insurtech space, but they are trying to push even regulators to how they can be accommodative to bring it all of these facet of the insurance area on their plate. So yeah, that's my take.
Thanks, Kuldeep. We look at insurance being more proactive than reactive. Is I think I found it very interesting from your perspective. Chirant, from the InsurTech startup perspectives, right? What is your key differentiators in the risk coverage and the business models compared to the established insurers in the market?
We don't underwrite risk. So for us, insurers and sort of reinsurers are on the supply side of the marketplace, if you will. The demand side or the buy side of the marketplace is really for us the distributors of insurance. Anybody who can distribute, right? Who has got a large consumer pool or a large customer base and wants to distribute insurance to them as against just providing insurance to their employees, which is another use case that we support, but that's not the mainstay of the business model. So for us, we are agnostic to the supply side. So our thesis has been that there are, in the motive or sort of the thesis of the company is really centered around solving for insurance penetration. We think that the India being the most populous country in the world, for us to be 50% of the median insurance penetration rate, a global median insurance penetration rate, something wrong in the very fact that that statement we could make, right? So we think that there is a large protection gap that needs to be solved for India, and you can do that by being either a good underwriter yourself, which is not the chops and the DNA of our company, or you could be a good distributor. Right now, within that, you can sort of do a couple of sort of segues, if you will. The first segue is like where you can be a brand, right, and do a good be a good distributor and who's a brand, which is like a policy bazaar, right, where you sort of go out into the market and actually acquire customers and build that kind of base over time. Or the other one is to be sort of an enabler where sort of you enable with technology and other tools, infrastructure tools, to allow anyone to be a distributor of insurance. So we come from an esoteric view that insurance should be as ubiquitous as say payments. The reason is very simple, right? We don't think, again, it's an esoteric view for what it's worth. So we come from a view that there is no, capitalism hasn't found a better way to protect or enable risk management of the entire masses like insurance, right? So insurance is probably the best product that we have in terms of mass coverage of risk management and related solutions. So we think that when risk is everywhere, risk management ought to be anywhere. So hence, enable insurance anywhere is our sort of tagline. And to your specific question on the how we are different from an underwriting perspective or vis-a-vis the existing sort of incumbents, we are agnostic. We have built pipes into sort of very traditional insurers. We have built pipes into sort of new age insurers like Digit, etc., and everyone in between, right? So for us, it is a function of sort of which of a distribution partner or our enterprise customer wants which products from which insurers at what price point, and we help them to do that discovery across sort of insurers and products and distribution channels, and enable the best use case for them to kind of go live and build their insurance distribution book on the back of the first set of pilot products, right? So that is sort of how we think about the supply side.
So in continuation of the of what we were discussing, what are some of the key trends and developments in the space you see from being an enabler for the insurance companies? How are they shaping the future of the industry, in your opinion, Chiranth?
Yeah, it's a very loaded question. So give me a minute to kind of answer that. So first of all, we see the spaces. So in terms of InsurTech and new age business models, we think there are fundamentally 5 InsurTech models, if you will, right, in India right now. And obviously, this might not be applicable in every part of the globe because insurance by definition is a very heavily regulated space. But we think in terms of these 5 business models, right? The first business model is really the direct to consumer distribution, right? Now the end consumer may be or direct to customer, and the customer could be a consumer or could be an MSME, it could be a corporate, doesn't really matter. But if you are directly interacting with them and acquiring them, that makes you that digital distributor, right? So that would be where your the policy bazaars of the world come in, and a new age, a bunch of health tech GMC providers are also there, etc. Then sort of the second model is sort of where you are enabling distributors, right? There are existing traditional insurance distributors like banks and brokers and new age distribution companies like consumer internet companies, etc. And you're providing the tools and the technology capability for them to kind of go to market and become faster, better, cheaper versions of themselves. Third is sort of where you're a new insurer, like say a Digit or an Acco, that is digital first insurer, right? They are built on a new age sort of technology rails, etc. That's the third category. Fourth is sort of your SaaS for insurers, where there are similar to the second bucket, except that the technology company looks at insurers as its customers as against distributors as customers. In the second bucket, it is the distributor who is the customer, right? Where we also kind of fit in the second, somewhat in the second sort of bucket. And the fifth and the most exciting sort of bucket, according to us, is really the horizontal, right? Where you have the API plumbing or the infrastructure business model, which is our business model, where each of the other buckets that I mentioned earlier can either be on the demand side or on the supply side. It depends, right? Sort of, that's the horizontal, the pipe or the sort of the rails, the wires, the tunnels, however you kind of see it, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, as they say. But really, it's that horizontal capability that enables everyone to kind of think about it in terms of plugging in their own capabilities and enable insurance at scale. So that's the few business models that we see, and there are differentiators with each of these business models, right? So that's why this becomes a long-winded answer. But to kind of cut to the chase, we think that there is a lot of things happening. I think we are in a perfect storm of insurance right now in India, especially. Penetration rate is low, but sort of getting closed more rapidly than ever in the past. The availability of data and tech, the AI as a sort of core capability, if you will, the crossover of talent coming from a very traditional sort of industry to sort of new age tech models or business models and vice versa, the ability of early stage capital to experiment, right? Insurers coming and being able to kind of underwrite products very quickly, very targeted contextual products, micro products, sachet products, etc., etc. And then sort of the whole regulatory landscape, right? So we've got a very forward-looking regulator. We are probably biased here because we live and operate in India, but we think that we probably have one of the most progressive insurance regulators globally in terms of how they think of technology to be omnipresent across the value chain and help in terms of growth of the overall industry at large, right? And very forward-looking regulations that have kind of come of late as well, which provide tailwinds to InsurTech business models like ours. So this confluence of all these things that are happening, across the value chain is it's unprecedented. So hence we call this as the perfect storm of insure and tech coming together to redefine the overall landscape.
I can't agree with you more. And I love the picture that you put on the horizontals and the verticals that you see the current insurance market in. Kuldeep, jumping onto you, what do you think are these other key trends that will stand out?
I think first, I think the trend is basically there should be a need behind the trend to go for. And the way I look at, I spoke, I think, in my conversation about the telematics, Internet of Things. I also talked about blockchain. The another thing which we are increasingly seeing, because the technology is in the hand of everyone right away, from mobile to computer to wearable devices, everything. And that's where I see the cyber threat is a huge there. With the data breaches, cyber threat is there. The cyber insurance is where I think the InsurTech companies are providing the modeling and the technology to really model this risk, because it is uncharted territory. No one has the back data to test it, to model it, to present it, and I think that's where the use of the use of the current data, the futuristic data, and the ARIMA model in the machine learning will present you the probable the risk modeling for the cyberspace. This is actually the one, and I think there are more key trends which are emerging, which is just related to your climate threat. I can tell you the climate challenge. Now all the models that have been there in the established insurers, we used to call it like once in 100 year, there'll be a big storm which will hit you. The things are being proven wrong. So one in a 19 years of theory would probably not survive in times to come, which means that your existing modelings I think risk assessment needs to be changed. And to change that, you need to assess or anticipate the future expected the threats. Do you have it? So I think it's a very dynamic word, and I continue to see more key trends emerging. I think it's just the start. If I have to really call it out, another area is autonomous vehicle. So right now, Chiranth talked about more policy, but what about autonomous vehicles? They're going to touch us very soon. How you would like to model that risk in times to come, because you would have manual-driven motor policy, manual-driven cars. You will have autonomous vehicles. Although you will have the devices to assess the individual or insured behavior in driving, but what about if there is no driver at all? So I think I'll look up to more key trends and how the industry will transform itself with the help of InsurTech in this area.
That's very, very intriguing and very interesting, right? And how the technology itself is bringing in new risks, new opportunities, and new products for the future. So, lastly, what do you think the future would look like for the InsurTech in your perspective, Kuldeep?
Yeah, I think it's for an insurance company, it's given that future is bright. But you need to be early, you need to have an early mover advantage in these spaces, I would say so. So it's not the lack of demand, it's actually more of the demand. And I think, let me put a number to it. If I look at the insurance protection gap across US, EMEA, and APAC, it is actually 30, 50, 70. That's the addressable market you have it. So it's a huge market, but obviously you need to take that risk and manage it. So future is bright for certainly, but I think where I see there are a lot of things which are to be done and are being done is actually bringing more innovative products, especially in the three specific area I will definitely call out is your climate change, cyber, and autonomous vehicles. These are the focus areas I got to know from few of my conversation with the established insurers, brokers, insured. When they come in this meeting, they are looking for this emerging risk. While at the other hand, we are already catering to the micro insurance. We are already catering to the user-based insurance. This will continue. This used to be a need or a hot demand a decade back. I would say a 5-year back, it has become a BAU. Now the next phase is the three area that I spoke on. That's the one. And the second is a global expansion. Like I said, I just talked about the protection gap. And I think the InsurTech will see a great boom in developing economies more, because the moment the technologies become accessible by most of the people, it would start reducing that protection gap. So it's a domino impact. Huh? You can't stop it. It is bound to happen. So you need to leverage. So I think one of the government meeting I was attending, and one person, I forgot his name, he said, India, not just India, I would say only example of India, but there are even other area in insurance. We are sitting on a gold mine and just trying to take a spoon out of it. Huh? You need a spade to actually leverage this opportunity. That's the one. I think the only area that I'm looking is the regulatory change. I think Chiranth, you also spoke on the regulatory framework. And I was attending a global conference of actuaries in Delhi, and I can tell you the regulator, the IRDA, and the regulatory, the chairman person were there, and they said, we are trying to build incubators. We are trying to see the challenges by the Indian insurer and the InsurTech industry, and we'll strike a fine-tuned balance to really make a blend of innovation as well as consumer data protection, because it's a key. So while we want to serve our customer best, but at the same time, we need to protect their data, we need to protect their integrity. So that's my take on the future vision on the InsurTech.
Thanks, Kuldeep. So what I take away is India is definitely in the middle of the storm, and we have a very bright future ahead, especially on the insurance industry and the InsurTech. Chiranth, how do you see the future of InsurTech from your viewpoint?
Yeah, no, I think Kuldeep had some amazing points and kind of agree with all of them. And sort of, we are probably a little biased here because we are in InsurTech. So sort of obviously the, future sounds bright, else we wouldn't be doing sort of what we are doing, in that sense. But, just to kind of take a step back and look at sort of that from a consumer lens, right? The end consumer lens. And kind of ties back into what we were talking about a little earlier as well, that insurance is, everyone needs it, nobody wants it. So hence it's best that it is invisible, but protects you at all given time. Now, where we see sort of this going is that, look, with this, with the omnipresence of data and technology and AI, which we have kind of spoken about, we think that the future of insurance is going to be hyper contextual, hyper on demand, hyper invisible. So there are tools working with you, for you, but happening completely in the background that is looking at risks based on sort of various data points from your location to sort of your past behavior, future sort of this thing, and then sort of predicting where you might want to have risk coverage at what point in time, and on a consent-based mechanism that gets kind of covered completely invisibly, right? So, and across all kinds of risk categories, I think Kuldeep also mentioned a few interesting risk categories on the climate side, cyber side, etc. But if you look at sort of, you paint a 2 by 2, right? And of whether it's a known or an unknown risk on one end, and on the other end, whether it is known or unknown in terms of, future sort of actuality, right? Then sort of we see that there is a lot. Insurance plays a role in 3 out of those 4 quadrants, right? The known is where there is no sort of role of insurance, right? The unknown known, the unknown unknown, the known unknown. All these sort of is areas where sort of insurance plays a very interesting role. And we see that all these categories are sort of going to kind of change on the back of some of the drivers that we mentioned to you earlier. And so it's just exciting, right? It is just exciting. There is no reason for uh, so insurance is already, we are literally, and talking the Indian market here, literally sort of a drop in the ocean, if we can say so, right? We are the second most populous country in the world. We are less than 2% of the overall market size, right? So insurance has to be a way of life here in India and other emerging markets as well. And I think all these drivers are going to kind of change that. And we're very bullish about sort of the future. We think as a company, uh, I think the best analogy that we can share is that, on the back of product market fit, obviously you grow quite fast, and we are lucky to be in that sort of position. But literally, we think even after 5 years, this is day zero, right? We have just figured out, which surface to scratch, if I can use that analogy, right? So we're going deeper and deeper. There is sort of we're questioning a lot of whys and why nots in every part of what we do, and it's exciting to be building, the underlying base infrastructure on the basis of which insurance can scale, right? Obviously, we're starting out on distribution. Then we'll, sort of we have kind of already made some sort of inroads into the servicing side as well. But the goal is that we are sort of working towards is to enable insurance anywhere, but completely on that invisible, on demand, hyper contextual sort of a frame of mind, right? So that's where we are bullish about, and that's what we think where the industry is going to go.
Wonderful. And I love that analogy of every day is a day zero for the startup. Thank you, Kuldeep and Chiranth, for this insightful conversation. I hope all of you had a great time listening to their insights as much as I did. I thank both of you for being part of the journey, and I look forward in seeing all of our listeners in the next episode of Futurize. Please leave your thoughts and questions, and we will surely reach out to you. Thank you.